Hello and welcome to the Congo Hour. We want to thank you so much for watching. I have my dad with me tonight. Wayna has the evening off. So I guess we're going to have an extended Sammy's Corner. We'll see what's on his mind. One of your favorite people and one of your favorite interviewees is here, Councilman Jay Street. I think he's coming to talk about redistricting. And he always has a lot going on, so I'm sure he'll touch on a lot of different subjects. And before that, we have some young ladies who own a dog grooming salon right here in Wilmington on Maryland Avenue. It's called Quad Paws, right? Did I get that right?
Quad Squad's Tiny
Quad
Paws.
Squad. Told you that. Quad Squad. Quad Squad. She brought one of her dogs with her. She has her daughter with her, and they're going to talk about their business. And then, as always, we have a lot of community news. We have our funeral announcements. We have some birthday shout-outs.
Yeah, hi.
And I guess you're going to give us a little bit of Sammy's Corner tonight, right? Since you haven't been here?
Well, I think Jay will take care of everything.
Okay,
tonight.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah, he's
All right.
tough, man.
Yes, that's true. So we'll get right to our interview, and then we'll talk about some community stuff a little later. How's that sound?
I love it.
All right, well, welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
All right, so you want to introduce yourselves?
Yes. I am T. Hicks, the owner of Quad Squad's Tiny Paws. We are located at 200 North Maryland Avenue in Wilmington, right by Mom's Pizza, a really popular pizza shop that everyone knows of.
Right up the street from Rita's. Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
right
next
there.
light up from Rita's.
Okay. All right, who'd you bring with you this evening?
And this is one of my 4 dogs. This is Lexi. She is a Shorkie Poo, which is a Shih Tzu, Yorkie, and a Poodle. She's 6 months old, and I take her around. We do a lot of advertising with her. And she's normally white, but I keep her pink, as you can see. And then this is my oldest daughter, Diamond. She's
Hey,
16.
Diamond.
She helps me out at the shop with bathing and taking care of the dogs as well.
Okay, so give me some of your background. What made you get into dog grooming?
I've always been an animal lover.
Okay.
Growing up, I've had everything from ducks to hamsters to
How'd you have a duck?
my uncle had everything. Yeah, I had 2 ducks
how do you even how do you have a duck? Like, where'd you have it? Like, where was it?
in my house.
For real?
I had 2 ducks. I used to throw them down the steps and let them flap down and let them fly. So, I've had hamsters. I've tried to take in wild birds. I've always had a dog.
Okay.
So a couple years, I've been doing loss prevention, and then it just kind of got old to me, kind of
Okay.
dangerous. So I said, my husband was like, well, why don't you, try to do something with dogs? So I just went for it. I didn't actually go to any school. I actually taught myself.
Okay.
And for anybody that's seen my work and they're like, oh my God, what school did you go to? It's just a gift from God.
All right.
And I just went with it. In February of last year, I just went full throttle. Went and got my business license and just went forth. And as of July 1st, I have a storefront.
Okay.
So
What kind of services do you provide?
small breed dog grooming,
Okay.
40 pounds and under.
Okay.
And we cut their hair, we do their nails, I offer dye services, clean their ears, brush their teeth, everything.
Oh, wow. Okay. So tell me, what's involved in dyeing a dog's hair?
It's actually dog safe dye. It's not
Okay.
human dye.
All
There
right.
are some human dyes that you can use, but it has to be a vegan dye.
Okay.
But just like a normal person would dye their hair, that's the same way you do a dog.
Okay.
It's a 2-hour process. The dye has to sit 15, half an hour, and it's pretty much the same process.
Yeah. How long will that last?
On her, because she's white, it lasts about 6 weeks, 6 to
Okay.
8 weeks before it starts fading out.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. What can you do with this right here with all this gray? Can you do something with this?
I probably could.
You could.
We
I'm
could go
send him
blue.
down. He's a little
some
heavier than
green.
40 pounds, but I'm sure you can work with him. We're gonna
Anything's
make an appointment.
possible.
Anything, that's right. That's what I like to hear.
Sick.
So what's your involvement? I know your mom said that you help out bathing the dogs. How do you like it?
It's fine.
It is? Okay. How long have you been helping since the beginning? Are you an animal lover also?
Not with dogs. I
No,
like
dog.
cats.
There you go. Okay. All right. Mom likes them all, huh?
I just want to ask you one question.
Yes.
I used to work on farms,
Okay.
and ducks are quite messy, aren't they? Couldn't
Yes.
that really mess your house up?
Yes,
a good
my mom
bit?
didn't want to keep them that long. We had them for a couple months, and then she was like, "They got to go back."
That's enough, huh?
Ducks are
Yeah,
very messy.
they are.
How'd you catch it? How'd you catch a duck?
Well, we clipped their wings, so they
Okay.
couldn't fly.
Okay, I got you.
So, yep, but they were house ducks.
Yeah. That's pretty
Yes.
cool.
We used to do the same thing. We had tons of them, though. We had
Yeah.
a duck farm almost.
Okay.
But that's the first thing you did. You clip those wings,
Yep,
or
and
they
then
would fly away.
Yep,
Every
definitely.
Time. Yeah.
What are your hours? What are your store hours?
My hours are Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then Saturdays 10:30 a.m. to 4.
Okay.
Once the kids go back to school, as of tomorrow, they'll change from 9 a.m. to 5,
Okay. All
and
right.
Saturday as well.
Okay. All right. So you small breed dogs, you pretty much
Yes.
the person can bring their dog to you, and they come back. When they come back, it'll be a totally
Whole transformation.
okay.
Yes.
Nails clipped, teeth brushed, hair clipped, haircut, and everything, and a dye.
Hair did, nails did, everything did.
All right.
Did you say the dog's name is Lexi? Or something?
Yes, she's Lexi.
She seems very comfortable right now.
She's made for
spoiled.
TV.
You said you said you have her mom
Yes, her mom and her dad.
and her dad. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
My grandson breeds dogs.
Does he? What kind?
Pit bulls.
Okay.
And
I have one of those
they're a
too.
special kind that's not aggressive. He has a bloodline that a lot of people want because they are not aggressive,
Okay.
and he does that in Florida.
Okay.
So he almost makes a living with it because
You
the
can.
dogs are so rare
Yes.
that he charges a lot of money for it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's his whole world too. Dog
Dogs,
breeding.
yeah. I mean, dogs are like family.
Yeah.
You become attached to them, and I mean, a lot of people spend a lot of money on their dogs.
Yeah.
They're, I mean, like if your dog, something were to happen to your dog, you'd cry like a whole entire baby.
Yes.
So-
Yes.
Yeah. I can
Definitely.
definitely attest to that.
Yeah, I can too.
Yeah, growing up, I always had a dog too. He did too. So
Okay.
naturally, I always had dogs. But then now my children are allergic. I just don't have enough time.
Right.
We had a couple dogs, like what's the hypoallergenic dogs, but I don't really have the time to have them now. But I've always had a dog growing up.
Yeah. See, and they're hypoallergenic too.
Yeah.
Yep. No shedding,
Mhm.
which is great.
So we have your number on the screen, 256-0506.
Yes.
Okay, so people can call and schedule appointments and just get more information.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to say hi to anybody who's watching? You want to give me a shout out?
To my mom, I know she's watching.
All right.
Hey, Mom. My husband's watching. My niece, Jessica. So I thank everybody for their support. Everyone that's brought me their dogs. I definitely appreciate it. I'm just trying to use the gift that God has given me to share with the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank everybody.
All right. You want to give any? You want to say hi to anybody who's watching?
Hey, my mom.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck with everything.
Thank you so
I
much.
definitely want the community to support you. Seems like you have a passion and a love for it. So
Yes.
that always goes. That's always a good sign.
Definitely.
All right. So we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with Newcastle Countyman, Newcastle County Councilman Jay Street. All right, welcome back. We hope that you enjoyed our first interview, and now we're going to have an extended Sammy's Corner, giving him an extra 10 minutes. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can introduce your guest, and we can have some dialogue.
Not only is it my guest, it's my favorite guest.
Right. Why is
He's
that?
Well, he's a man of his word. He's a man of action. He's a man that knows the community. He's not in his position to get what I call rhetoric. He gets facts, and he makes assignments to himself and gets them done. And I've always admired him from his parents, who were the same kind of people. They were people who saw and said, why not? And got it done. And I think he has a idol, old Diamond Jim, who was the same kind of guy, and And if you put them on side of each other, you'd never think they were related. But Diamond Jim was a man of action, and I'm just so happy to be on with him tonight because Mr. Street is of that nature, and I just want to hear what he has to say tonight about the school district.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't be sitting here in my capacity as councilman, not for your support, not for everything you've done to help me, and not just what you've done for me, but the encouragement. I appreciate everything you and the entire family have done, and I think the community needs to know that. When there are people in the community, the Congo family helps develop leadership. It's very much appreciated, very much respected.
Well, thank you.
I asked to come on tonight primarily for two reasons. I want to spend a short time in talking about Christina School District, and the big picture and the big pieces is what I call the so-called Wilmington Education Improvement Commission. I'm gonna start with Christina and come back to the commission.
Okay.
I posted on my Facebook page yesterday morning and said Christina's raging out of control. And some of the responses were, no, it's not. Well, yes, it is. And I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
One, December 2012, not J Street, the Office of Civil Rights found the Christina School District guilty of discrimination and discipline,
Right.
district-wide at all levels. Problem with that is, 3 years later, nobody's been held accountable, nobody's been held responsible, and essentially, I'm the only public official that's ever said anything about it. The State Board of Education, Department of Education, sat idly by and let it take its course. Now, I know folks are sitting there saying, well, he's still talking about that. Yes, I am. And it's relevant. It's relevant because, one, Christina is not out of the resolution and the requirement. They have not met all the requirements from OCR, so they're still under OCR supervision. And two,
I don't mean to cut you off, but before we go into that, can you just kind of clarify what you mean when you say discrimination, just so everybody is aware?
OCR did an investigation over a 2-year period and compared discipline of white kids versus discipline of black kids.
Okay.
And there was obvious discrimination.
Okay.
So they documented it and they said it was district-wide at all levels. Now, not only have they not, they're still under supervision as it relates to OCR, but it appears to me, and it's relevant to me because it's trickled up. Last month, or earlier this month, recently, that a school board member convicted of harassing a black bus driver and using a racial slur. She's still sitting on that board. Nobody on that board has said anything, nobody has done anything, and it's business as usual. Now let me, J Street, county councilman, go out here and harass a county employee, and it'll be like Monopoly, I'll go straight to jail. But what's important about that is the reason nobody on that school board is saying anything, because she's the fourth vote in their decision-making processes. Now you got a person with that perspective, it's proven in the court of law that you harassed an African-American employee and you're still sitting there making policy decisions. The critical decisions that are going to be made going forward right now. Who's going to be the interim superintendent? Who's going to be the next superintendent? You've had Christina failed to pass a referendum. So now you've had teachers laid off, and you've got decisions that have to be made about building principles, which have been made, and now you have to have a process going forward. Do we trust, can we, in the African American community, trust this person to be part of the decision-making process as it relates to being fair to employees? The more important part of it is, if you're not fair to employees, how in the world can anybody reasonably expect for you to pass policies and procedures that are going to be fair to children? When the racial slur is used and you're convicted of it in a court of law after you pleaded not guilty and nobody said anything, nobody's done anything, it's business as usual, Christina's in trouble. And tomorrow morning, when school starts, I'm urging parents to go into the school, see how many kids are in your child's class. They didn't pass the referendum, so they had to lay teachers off. That means you're going to have larger class sizes, and a district is out of control. And you've got a lot of buildings right now, because of the layoff process, because they didn't pass the referendum, because they don't have the money. You got teachers, brand new teachers in all those buildings. Tomorrow we'll see those kids for the first time. And you think you're going to have stability in those schools? I guarantee you tomorrow, by 9 o'clock, children will be suspended, children will be put off buses, and the district is a major, major problem. And I urge parents, if you have a way by which you can take your children out of Christina School District, I would do so with all deliberate speed. So that's one issue. Comparatively, it's a narrow issue.
When you said go and see how many children are in your child's class, what should the number be, and what do you think it might be?
Well, it depends on the age. The maximum, for example, in an elementary school class, you would expect for it to be around 20. I guarantee you that 28, 30, or more in those classes or more, simply because they don't have the teachers and the resources. So in the city, as it relates to our kids, in the so-called priority schools, which we already knew were failing, it's just going to be worse this year. And nothing's going to change, but that leadership's going to remain intact, and the Department of Education, no state official is going to do or say anything about it.
What could be done about that?
Well, number one, the board should have been encouraged to resign. They could have disciplined her themselves, and if she had any integrity left, she would do us all a favor and move on. But for everybody to sit idly by and nothing be said, nothing be challenged, it's just business as usual, I think it's absurd. And
how many
to
people
have
are
that
on the
person
board?
to sit there and continue to vote on policies and procedures directly impacting personnel, which directly impact how children learn, it's very, very relevant.
How many people sit on the board?
7.
7. Okay, so
But I really wanted to, and I know folks are waiting to hear, because I put it on Facebook that I was coming on tonight, my criticism of this so-called Wilmington Education Improvement Commission.
Okay.
First of all, it's the Wilmington Education Improvement Commission. There are more people on the commission that don't live in the city than do live in the city. The legislation, somebody came forward at the 11th hour with an amendment and said at least half the people have to be in the county. So you've got more representation from the county than you do from the city, but it's the Wilmington Education Commission. There are more elected officials when you count school board members who are representative of the county than there are city elected officials. Now, I want to get down to nuts and bolts. Subliminal message was sent with their first meeting. It's the Wilmington Education Improvement Commission. They met at Balt School. So you're going to have a majority county representative commission, Wilmington Education Commission, have its first meeting in the county. So this is going to be to the betterment of city schools. Now, my major problem with this is, for 14 years, we have asked for, and I'm going to stay in this arena until 3 things happen. Until we get a weighted funding formula for high poverty segregated schools. In other words, more money, more resources. A reduction in the number of districts in the city of Wilmington, and the city of Wilmington as a city, as a government, having more control over the educational destiny of its own children.
Right.
We have no authority, we have no responsibility for the education of our own children.
and we're one of the only city, one of the
only city
right?
on the East Coast, and I believe the country, where the city as a government has no authority, no responsibility over the educational destiny of its own children.
So in other cities, what kind of responsibilities does?
They have major responsibility. They have the exact same responsibility that we had under the Wilmington School District. The Philadelphia School District, as a city, is run by the city of Philadelphia.
Okay.
But my problem is this. I believe that either the commission is a hoax or it's completely and totally misdirected. And I'm saying that because if you're going to redistrict and you're going to merge the children from Christina into Red Clay, the children that live in the city, the first thing you have to do is change school board members, nominating districts. To my knowledge, nothing's been said. There's no conversation. Nothing's going on with the Department of Elections in terms of where the new seats, where the new lines for school board members and nominating districts are going to be drawn. So if you're not at the point where you're talking about school boards and transitions, you're not serious about what you're doing. Second, if you're going to move kids from Christina into Red Clay, and you don't have somebody sitting around having a serious discussion about pupil assignment and feeder patterns, you're not serious about what you're doing. Third, the legislation was passed with no funding. You can't make a major transition like that with children without staff support. So there is no staff. So to me, it's not serious, because you need staff to help you put together what the new school board's going to look like, what the nominating district's going to look like, what the pupil assignments are going to look like. Somebody has to look at current contracts and how you transition or change those, be it teacher contracts, be it vendor contracts. For example, if a $1 million roof was put on a school and it's guaranteed for 25 years, how do you make the transition to that guarantee on that roof if you're going to change buildings? And looking at it, it's a whole legal process. There are no lawyers at the table. If you're going to have a comprehensive education improvement plan, there's no representation as we speak on that commission for early childhood education or for higher education. So you're just going to throw those two factions away, not figure that into the process. So in my opinion, it's either a hoax or it's completely and totally misdirected, and there are too many important things that need to be put in place in order to make this kind of transition. More important than anything else, there's no education expert in the country that could come in here and testify that you can educate low-income, at-risk children with the same resources and the same amount of money, that you can appropriately educate them with the same resources and the same amount of money that you do with everybody else. We've talked about this for 14 years. The Neighborhood School Committee recommended it in 2001. The General Assembly put it on the shelf. The Wilmington Education Task Force recommended it in 2008. No action was taken. General Assembly put it on the shelf. This commission last year wrote a nice little book.
Right.
And the only legislation that has been passed is to create this commission. There's no discussion about the additional resources needed for these children now, and definitely needed when you make that transition. So you're not serious. As far as I'm concerned, one of two things. It's either a hoax or it's completely and totally misdirected and misguided. And I was not happy. Stopped being angry. I'm focused now on those three things. But you go sign, the governor went and signed the legislation that was passed to create this commission at the Hockessin School, as if this was some kind of civil rights legislation. It was part and parcel to the history in that school. And know full well what this is a segregation forever plan. Because when you have decided that you're going to continue down this path for the neighborhood schools, and you have children in the city of Wilmington, the percentage of African American and minority children in those schools is over 90%. The poverty rate is 85% or more in all these schools, and you know full well most of them are never going to go to school with any significant number of white kids until they go to high school, if ever. It's a segregation forever plan, but you're going to go to Hockessin School and go back and act as though this is part consistent with the civil rights legislation in the Brown versus Board of Education decision, and in total opposition. Because this is, if it stays in place the way it is, it's a segregation forever plan. These children will be segregated from now on, henceforth and evermore, until somebody has the wherewithal to go back into court and say that the Neighborhood School Act, the Choice School Act, the Charter School Act are all unconstitutional, have created resegregation, and therefore we should abolish all these districts and start this whole process all over again.
Going back to, I guess, the money that needs to be put into the schools, is that is that more of the state's responsibility or the district's, or a combination?
It's a combination thereof, but the state drove the train to the neighborhood school, to the Neighborhood School Act, the Choice School Act, and the Charter School Act. They have to drive the train with the additional resources. And what do you need the additional resources for? Well, all the schools now have all-day kindergarten, but we need mental health specialists in schools. We need opportunities for extended school days and extended school years. We need reading specialists. We need math specialists in these buildings. All the things that we talked about that you can do to improve and enhance the education of these children in these high poverty schools. In the absence of money, it's not going to happen. And it's no accident that in the absence of money, the schools are failing. And the Department of Education came in this year and said, we're going to do these priority schools and we're going to put $1 million in each school. I thought it was $1 million per school per year. That's $1 million for 5 years, which means it's $200,000. What could realistically be done? So that was destined for failure from the beginning. And unless some things change dramatically with this so-called Wilmington Education Commission, it's going to be destined for failure.
So why do you think the state isn't putting the money into the school?
Well, why do I think? And I said in the Day magazine, and I don't think they printed it, or I don't think they're going to print it, because the predominance of decision makers in this state do not give a you-know-what about our children, especially children in the city of Wilmington. Never have, never will. And the only progress that's ever been made with the decision makers in this state from the 1950s forward, it had to be compelled by a judge or judges, and I don't think the situation we're in now is going to be any different.
So there's a group of decision makers, right, in Dover. That happens in Dover,
Yes.
right? So your view is that they don't care enough about Wilmington.
My view is, and the history is crystal clear, the Delaware General Assembly has never done anything progressive on behalf of children in the city of Wilmington unless it was compelled by a judge or judges. And I don't think it's a crystal clear need for additional resources, and I don't think those resources are forthcoming. I don't think the votes will be there unless there's a judge standing in the way that says you're either going to do this or you're going to do something completely different.
I guess the problem, the way I see it, is that, say the group of decision makers, say it makes up, I'm just going to throw a number out there, say it makes up 10 people. In Wilmington, we're only about, say we only have 3 people out of the 10. So is that where the problem is? Like there
are 23 people, we have 9.
Right, so we can't, like, even though
So
we have people in Dover, we
okay,
don't have
so
enough voice.
if you're going to create new nominating districts for school board members, okay, who's going to make the ultimate decision on where the lines are drawn, and so if we're on one side of the table, we would put forward an extended effort to make sure that where practical and possible, you'd have majority minority districts, so that a minority person and representatives of the city could sit on that board. That's not going to happen when you're in the minority in terms of making the decisions directly. The exact same thing with where kids are going to go to school. And you look at what happened in Red Clay this year alone. You know, you had folks out there who think they got this brand new school and it's going to be devoid of any minority children. So when the Red Clay board changed the feeder pattern and said the kids from what we used to call Lancaster Court Department are going to go to this new school, all you know what broke loose, all the way down to folks coming to school board meetings screaming and hollering about those kids, if they come out there to this school, are going to lower my property values. All this kind of new millennium racism that our kids have to go to school with, and it's a terrible, terrible situation. And quite frankly, I'm gonna fight till I can't fight anymore to get those 3 things. But I know full well,
So
I've been in 40 years, and I will never live to see fairness and equity in this school system.
Yeah, how do you even fight that system? Like, how do you, like, what could you do?
Well,
when the way it's set up.
The system, it has, for the 40 and a half years I've been in the arena, the system has responded to 2 things and 2 things only: confrontation and litigation. And it's time for both. And I'm telling you now, in your capacity as city councilman, I'm coming to city council, and I'm gonna say it's time for both. I've been to the mayor, gonna go back to the mayor and say, we as a city I really don't care about the election next year. I don't care who's running for what. We as a city have a responsibility to bring forward this confrontation and, if necessary, bring forward this litigation, because our children are suffering irreparable harm as a result of this failing school system.
Right, and it's true. Like so often we get caught up in police and I guess public safety, but I think we're really missing where the energy needs to go. I mean, the police are an important part of the puzzle, but we really have to be more involved with this whole education thing that you're talking about, Mr. Street. Like when you say confrontation.
But if you look at public safety and the public safety issues, the young men that are selling drugs, the young men that are carrying the guns, do you think they were the honor roll students when they were in school?
Exactly.
Do you think they're the kids that were eminently qualified to go to college and all of a sudden they turned criminals because they just didn't want to go to college? Or do you think they're the young men that felt as though the whole time they were in school they were destined for failure, the system was failing and nobody cared about them? So since nobody cares about me, and nobody's going to take care of me, I'm going to take care of myself the best way I can.
Right.
It's wrong, but that's the harsh reality of the current situation that we're in.
And just real quick, I know you probably want to say something to that. When you said confrontation and litigation, break those two down. What does that mean to you?
Confrontation is, well, I just started it, but it's going to take more than me.
Right.
Historically and traditionally, we protested, we demonstrated, and we went to court. And I'm saying to us as a city tonight, it's going to take more than me. Parents are going to have to get up and go get involved, and it's quite frankly time to hit the streets.
Right. You have anything to say?
I'm just interested in all this information that it seems to me with all of the public officials that we have, that is this absent from their information baggage, or they're aware of it and they, let's say all the city council people have a whole district of people that should be being worked on now to unite to do the confrontation.
That's what I think is going.
Well, and that's why it's.
Happen.
Let's look at the harsh reality. I've been in the arena 40 and a half years, and basically on our side of the table, nobody has the duration of experience that I have, and there's also been an expectation that we're going to take care of it. The Coalition to Save Our Children was supposed to take care of it, and we did. We did the best we could when we were under court supervision. So I've been the primary voice, and all I'm saying at this point, it's going to require additional voices, and I'm asking for that help. I'm gonna come to City Council. I'm gonna ask y'all for help, and I'm gonna ask you for money.
I think we get
because
caught up.
only way you go over in the courthouse and prevail is you got to pay lawyers to do that.
Like we get caught up, I think, on City Council and probably in government. Like we get caught up in having meetings about it and having discussions and bringing people to the table just to talk about it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make people move. Like I've been saying it for a while. I really think we have to take it back a few decades.
But through the mayor and through council, I mean, we've had strategy meetings, we've had think tank meetings. It's not that.
But it's not enough.
People, it's not enough.
Right.
But it's a focus, and for the weighted funding formula. Okay, if you're serious about a weighted funding formula, going back to the commission, where's your expert and who's sitting down at the table right now writing the formula? We called in an expert, paid an expert, we're ready to present a formula, but if they were about doing this right, somebody would be drafting a formula, a weighted funding formula to present to the commission for consideration to suggest to the General Assembly and legislatively. If you don't have that, you're not serious about what you're doing.
I don't think that we can present it because I think it's just going to fall on deaf ears like it always has. But I've been in meetings where the former Secretary of Education has flat out said, no, we're not going to give more money to schools who
and then he came in, did his little tenure, he closed Moyer, he closed Reach, and then he goes on about his business.
Right.
So there's no continuity.
Yeah.
There's no continuity of leadership, and there's no genuine concern.
Yeah, we have to get more aggressive, like you said. The confrontation part, I think that's where the rubber meets the road, as you always say. That we just have to start mobilizing people and getting people involved, because I think that people in Dover will respond to numbers.
But at the end of the day, look at the history. When Hicks wanted Dr. Jackson to be the superintendent, he emptied Bancroft School and he went and they took over the school board building. When Hicks
Right.
wanted that overpass across Governor Prince Boulevard, they just stopped traffic. Okay, so if we pick one day and cut off a street so nobody can get in and out of town, somebody's gonna have to start listening.
That's
And
what I
those
think
are
it's
the
gonna
kind of
take.
things that
Exactly.
we have done historically and traditionally. You disrupt things, you interrupt things through peaceful demonstrations, and let
Right.
folks know it's not business as usual. It can't be business as usual. Our children are our future, and under this current school system, under this underfunded school system, it's not fair that they don't even have a fair chance. And that's all you want. All I want is to give them the opportunity to have a fair chance. Right now, they don't have that.
How do we get this started?
I think we just did. This
So-
shows widely watched, and I'm sure phones are going to be ringing off the hook tomorrow. And I'm not going away. I let them go through their whole process, the entire legislative session. I didn't like the legislation. I didn't agree with it. I promised I would not interfere with it. And folks did the best they can do, but I'm just getting started. And I don't want folks to think that I'm stepping out of the arena and I'm making it clear. I told primary decision makers, I don't want to be in the arena anymore, and some of them want me in the arena, but I'm staying until at least those three things are accomplished.
Okay, do we have a model, so it's not all over the place, that allows us to be able to focus and stay focused so we get the job done?
Yes, I mean, we've got models in other jurisdictions. The one we've looked at most recently that a lot of folks like is the weighted funding formula was created in the Boston school system, but it's been done in Massachusetts, it's been done in Texas, it's been done in a lot of jurisdictions throughout the country. And as a matter of fact, we're one of the few jurisdictions in the nation that have not had litigation just as relates to funding and fairness in funding. So it's not unique. We do have some models in the city and with the assistance of the county exec. We brought in an expert, and we have a formula that we can give them. We can say, these are the things that you need to consider. This is how to develop the formula.
If we should focus on any special reason why we're where we are, who would you suggest, or what would you suggest would be that reason why we're so far behind?
We're far behind because, number one, I was forced and I was compelled to work toward the implementation, successful implementation, we did it peacefully, of a school desegregation order that I didn't agree with. Second, when we got to the point where we went from one district to super district to 4, that was major and, in my opinion, somewhat catastrophic. But since 1996 and then 1998 and then 2000, those 3 acts, the Choice School Act, the Charter School Act, and the Neighborhood School Act, they were all acts that purposely and intentionally created segregation and resegregation, which is why we've got a federal complaint pending now about the Charter School Act and its implementation. So those 3 acts collectively are, as I said earlier, they're segregation acts. And the state knew that. They knew full well what was going to happen when they did one, and when they did all 3 together, it's completely different, and it's had a devastating effect. The data is crystal clear. The racial composition of the schools in the city, the racial composition of the charter schools in and out of the city, so that is there. And I really think, somewhat based on the decision that even this conservative Supreme Court made as relates to housing, and the fact that you could use statistical data to prove discrimination and segregation in housing, I think that leaves the door swinging wide open to go run into the court for relief with educational matters, because certainly we have the statistical data to show that these three acts collectively here in Newcastle County, Delaware, in my opinion, are segregative, have had a segregative effect, and the data's there. All you have to do is look at the racial composition of the schools.
You know, when an army goes out to war, it has a strategy and it has systems that keep the front line burning. And I guess we run out of time. I saw Trip shut me down here. But how would you like to come back next week?
Well, next week the county executive and I are going to come back for a little while, and we've asked for it. I think the permission has been granted to talk about the public hearing on the landfill in Minkledale. So I don't know how much time we'll have but I'll come back whenever you want, whenever you let me come back.
Well, I'm going to let you come back anytime you want to come back.
And I appreciate that.
Because I think it's so important that our kids are given the opportunity, with all the handicaps and all the blocks, with all the mountains to climb, that we got to do something to lower some of the mountains and some of the valleys. And I think the education is what is required. And so from now on, whenever you want to, you consider Sammy's Corner yours for a long time.
I thank you, sir.
And so
be careful what you ask for, because I'm gonna take full and total advantage
But
of that.
yeah, I think we got to stimulate some thinking, and I think that, as you say, this is the beginning, and Trippy is over there jumping on me. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with. Oh, we're going directly to our community news and our funeral announcements.
Sorry, Councilman.